Okay, I took these videos the same day I did my video about the channel markers, all the way out to Cutter's Rock, the North Rock, Bill Watts Rock, and Bill Still, and the Bayport Channel Rock. But this is, I wanted to just show you a little perspective, so I slowed this first part down a little bit. But I'm not claiming that this surface is completely flat. Matter of fact, I pick out some things that I definitely want to show you. But you can look at these as if they were waves on the water. Now you can see that on the deck here, there's leaves and some sticks and whatnot laying out there. And this gap is what we're going to be kind of looking at, where I put the arrow. But I did want to bring to your attention that there is some raised up areas, and these little raised up areas are about 1/4 of an inch high. It's a plate going across where they welded it on. Right there, you can see it toward the bottom of the screen. I have to go underneath this one rail, but I'm going to point them out with some arrows. So again, I'm not claiming that this is 100% flat, perfectly flat. It's got some raised spots in it. But I show you and I pick them out for you. But you can look at those, like I said, like waves out on the water that can block out farther distant objects. Like that gap, it slowly disappears. Now there's another little ridge right here, right at the edge where I'm got my camera. But what I also want to do is bring up the refraction line that pops up that you can obviously see. And what I did was I took a picture of the frame, and then I marked out where I see this reflection line, and there's no way that this reflection line or refraction line is going to block out any or pull anything up from behind a curved object. In fact, it can actually block your vision out and stop you from seeing in that general gap right there that I pick out with the yellow and pink arrow. But you know, this is little things that people can do themselves for a perspective test. And you know, if you even find a flatter, maybe a long beam, maybe you work in steel construction, you're building big buildings and whatnot, and you get this long ass beam, use that long ass beam and then run a string line over it, you know, and even look at the rail going down the side to the right of the screen. Look at all the little slats. They start gathering up and it almost becomes a wall. You know, it only appears to be like a wall. And then, you know, too, when I zoom back, there's that refraction line again. But watch when I zoom back, you'll see those rails at the end. You know, do some funky things. Some of them seem to disappear and come into frame. Maybe I already passed that part. But you know, my thing is observations and looking at the smaller details and stuff that, you know, a lot of people don't look at. And you know, the lower you get to a plane or a flat object, the more you increase your angular resolution. So things just don't resolve as well as if they were, you know, up higher. In other words, the higher I go, the more of an angle I get, the better resolution I get, and the camera can easily resolve those edges or that farther end. Just like right here, I raised up. Of course, I can see the end of these, you know, these railings, and I can also see that big gap that's down at the bottom. Now that big gap is no bigger than the gap that I'm at the beginning, where I've got my camera down under. So, you know, okay, here again, I wanted to say retrospect, but here again, look at the rails down at the very end, and then, you know, also look at this gap at the bottom of that farther rail, how it appears to be going downward. But you know, we know that if we go down there, that if that bridge continued or that rail continued, it would still have the same gap, but it appears to be mashing or compressing into the floor, into the bottom. So, you know, if you just take that the way that it is, even when I raised the camera up to where the bottom of that just was under there, there was a couple spots I wanted to slow down and point out too, but you can look at that top rail going into the floor. If I get the floor or that edge above, or my camera below that edge, the top rail looked like it went right into the bottom of that edge. And that's the same thing that the sun and the moon do. And you know, people say explain that, and you know, we try to explain it with you know, it's perspective. Perspective will make any object that's going above you, you know, like a plane flying over you. Also, look at the rails or these benches, how they appear to be going downward and getting smaller as they get away. Well, you know, people say that the sun doesn't get any smaller. Well, that is also due to magnification, the atmospheric conditions, the moisture in the air, causing a magnification of the sun and the moon. So they may not appear to be getting smaller, but again, it's all an illusion to your eyes. And this is where I think a lot of the science does not allow you, they don't want you to take this into consideration. Right here was another good example, looking down this edge of this beam right at the corner. Now, of course, I show you that there's a lip there, and I'm not trying to hide that from you. There's a lip, but you know, if I zoom in, you can see that gap open up, and then if I zoom back, you see that gap close. In other words, it almost, again, looks like it's getting pinched off. Compressed is the word that I like. Alright, I'm just doing this 10-minute time lapse. Let's see if I can get it on here and show you that I leveled it from the bottom to the top. I used the virtual horizon. I split the difference, and that is where the horizon should be, or the water line should be. And we're just seeing, again, just a mirroring of the sky in that general area. Water goes well beyond that hard water line. And, you know, go out and test this for yourself. Use that virtual horizon, split the difference, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Anybody with a P900 can do this. Okay, so I'm just going to do a 10-minute time lapse, and then I'm done for the day, or for this morning. Alright, I appreciate y'all watching. And I'll add this to this 10-minute time lapse. Alright, I don't know if I've ever been out on this point and stood. I don't know how high I would be, but you know, I was just trying to eyeball it and come as close as possible to where I think the horizon would be. So I put that arrow there because I figured if I was out on that island, about where would my eye height be, or my camera height lens would be. Alright, I put this part in here. Yeah, this was another cell phone video, and of course you can see my cell phone has 8 times zoom, but the problem is its resolution really stinks when you zoom it out this far. But I thought it was important because you can see that little gray zone that's in there. And I could slow some of this down, but I like to just kind of show it the way I see it. But also look at all the chemtrailing going on in the sky. It was really heavy this day, and you could see all over the sky these trails that all these planes were making, and they were going in every which direction, but mainly you can see that they were kind of blocking out the sun. Even here, when I zoomed in on the sun, you can see all those chemtrails, or you know, plane trails, if you want to call them condensation trails, go ahead, but I think there's more to it than what they tell us. But you can see out there on that edge between the water and the sun, how that light is just bleeding through, and you know, this is how the my camera's picking it up, zoomed in on it, and you see that little spot between the hard water, the visible water, and that little gray spot above it. That spot right there is where I say that it's a mirroring of the sky, and you know, you can take it as I see it, or even here where I zoom into my camera itself, you can see that gray area in there, and that's where I think the Raleigh's criterion effect occurs, where you get the reflection of the sun coming off the water, which creates two objects, and as these two objects get farther and farther apart, they blend in together and they vanish within themselves. Now you can see, I mean, I have the whole video of this with my camera that I could post if people want to see that too, but I didn't think that that was the bigger important part. And of course, see, we got this little jet ski come flying in, and of course, he creates a wake or a wave, and it blocks out anything that's just on the other side of it, of course. But if I had my camera down real low and that went by, it would block out some of my horizontal line of sight, and that's what we say. It's a line of sight that you can see things, and this next part after the next transition, I'll be able to show you more of it, or a different perspective of this. But this was the first part was from the morning time that I was down there, and then when I came back, I started doing it again. And here's that gray area out there that I talk about, and you can almost see how that reflection of the sun blends with its own reflection, and that's where the sun actually gets smaller. But if I was to go up higher and higher and had a really high elevation, well, the sun would appear to get smaller, and that's the problem, is we're standing on the ground. We are the bug on the ground with all the evaporated water in between us. So again, you can take that into consideration as well. All right, I'm getting ready for the next part. Man, the mosquitoes are bad. Let's do one last shot here. It's north. From west. Look at that mirror. Mosquitoes all in my ears. We'll walk down to the water's edge here. It'll give you a different perspective. Okay. Here you go. It's right at the water's edge, like a bug would see. A 4-inch bug, something like that. Hands are in the mud. That's what a rat would see. He was
mosquitoes down here on the water. Watch out, because I have seen some down here, rats and raccoons. Alright, mosquitoes biting my hand, I gotta stop. How about these two boats right here coming in? Good time. Boat coming in the channel with no lights on. Well, Marine Patrol seeing him, he'd be chewing them up. That's a ticket right there. No lights on a boat coming in at night. That is a ticket. Marine Patrol sees him, he'll get a ticket too. Especially if they're at the boat ramp. Alright, I'm done.
Alright, let's take a closer look at this picture right here. You see Bill Watts and Billy Steele's beacon lights flashing. I took a still picture of them right when they flashed, so I was able to get them. And then let's take a closer look at that last clip. I cut a piece out and slowed it down, and this is a real kick in the globes. I had to say that. All right, too, if you really pay attention, actually, I think you can see a third light flashing in here. Now, you do see three, but the red one to the right is the halfway mark to the Bayport channel marker, because it veers off to the right. But I'm talking about the two to the left or in the middle of the screen, and toward that red one, there's another light that I think I seen it flash a little bit too. So that would be Cutter's Rock that you would have seen flashing at 4 inches off the ground. I seen it again, so I know it's there. Should have marked it, but you know, it's just a quick flash and it's hard to pick up. So I'll let you be the judge if you see that third one out there. All right. Well, I really do hope that you liked my presentation. Like, subscribe, mirror, use any parts of my videos that you like. They're all there for sharing. So it's just that I feel like you know, perspective does play a awful big role in how we see things on angular resolution, or you know, on an angular view. The higher you go up, the farther you can see on a plane. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.